this is what Daryl Davis did, right? And we're going to read about Daryl Davis this week, black musician who ended up having a beer and a drink with a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Wow. And in that conversation, as like the guy said to him, you know, I'm a member of the Klan, and so Daryl had this question in his mind since he was a young kid and he first got exposed to the hate that is racism. And so he said to him, you know, I really want to understand, why do you hate me when you don't even know me? And they ended up having a conversation. And they ended up exchanging phone numbers. And every time Daryl would come into town to play, this guy would come, and he ends up leaving the Klan. And not only does he end up leaving the Klan, but he brings other people with him, and they end up leaving the Klan. And Daryl has now made this sort of, it's part of his life's work. Over 200 members of the Klan have left the Klan because of his interactions with them. Because he was willing to be truly present with them. He was respectful with them. He was curious with them. He was willing to listen. And in that process, I know that, yes, we see like, oh, you know, the white supremacist sees the light. But Daryl has been changed as well. It's not a one-way street. He is a different human. He has a greater sense of compassion. He has a greater sense of understanding about how these kinds of stereotypes get created and how these stereotypes become fixed in our understanding, and how hard it is to break those open. So part of what the invitation is this week with the work that we're going to be looking at, besides this idea of, you know, how do we show up like Daryl Davis, right? I mean, that's the call, right? How do we be that open? How do we be that present when someone is directing animosity at an identity that is rooted in sort of like nothing we can do about it? It's who we are authentically. And it really comes down to deep listening. And that's really what we see in that commercial. So the setup gave those folks an opportunity to listen deeply to each other before they knew these things that put them on opposite sides of each other, and creating a sense of connection. And the commercials put together really well. They do things together. They don't just sit and talk. They're building things together. They're forced to interact in a task. I mean, this was part of last week's reading, right? The difference between task conflict and relational conflict, and how we often conflate the two of them. And so because they're involved in a task, it creates a sense of connection. And in that sense of connection, they're not looking for where they don't agree. They are looking for the places of commonality. And because of that, they are then able to bridge some pretty intense, like, differences. If they had come in just at the beginning with that perspective about each other, we would not have ended up where we end up in this. So deep listening means letting go of what you know, really letting it go. Trusting your own values, trusting you don't have to push those values on other people, trusting that those values are going to guide you. And we here in Unity, our values are always our absolute principles of love and joy and grace and faith and life. Those are our values. And then it also means that we are willing to create a space for something else to happen, that we're willing to be surprised.